Hello and welcome to another Jumpstart Your Journey with Beehiiv event. We are so happy to have you here with us today, joining us. We're happy that you've decided to give Beehiiv a shot and give us a try. We're really fortunate to have your attention and your business, and we are striving to make the most of that. What this is going to be today will be a very kind of practical intensive where we go through all of the different settings and all of the different features of the editor and getting up and sending your first post. Essentially, by the time we finish our session today, you'll be totally comfortable with at least getting to your first post send with all of the details of your account set up properly so that you are putting your best foot forward with your subscribers. My name is EJ White. I'm the head of growth here at Beehiiv. I'm the first employee. So I've been around the block, seen everything, and have been a part of building this great company from pretty much the beginning. Very fortunate to be able to have played a role in this. And so if you have any questions, I should be able to answer them. If on the rare chance that there's a question that I don't have a quick answer to, we will pass that to our support and engineering and product teams to make sure that we get the right answer for you. And just another note, I have a producer here. You guys can't see him or hear him, but from time to time he may ping in to remind me to say something, to break in, to have me answer a question. If I start pausing and listening, or appearing like I'm listening or talking to somebody, that's my producer in my ear. And so there you go. Housekeeping, like to save as many questions for the end as possible. However, I understand that as we go through, you're going to see things, you're going to have questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat. Tony will be here and will do his best to answer as many questions as possible. He's also going to drop a Q&A, and he's already done it. He's dropped a Q&A link in the chat. And so if you have questions, you can also drop them there. And we always spend time at the end of the call to take some Q&A. So if it's questions that maybe not specific to what we're talking about or that may be useful to the entire audience, those are great for the Q&A. Everything's going to be recorded. It'll be sent to you after the call. We usually take a couple days to get them up because we take and we polish them and edit out any ums and ahs and them a little bit so that they're easier for folks who may be watching in the future. But about an hour after the end of the call, you'll receive an email with a link to where we keep all of those webinars. With that in mind, I think Tony will be kind enough to drop a link to the archive right now. If you guys want to check out some of the past ones that we've done, you can find them there. We have a couple jump starts that we've published already. We have a little bit of a backlog that we're working through, but then you can also see all of the other webinars that we've run. We generally do 3 to 5 a week on different topics. So today is really from the very beginning, the basics of getting you up and running. But we have things on topics like growth and design and monetization and delivery and basically anything that's relevant to a newsletter publisher. We like to bring in the experts and we like to share the inside scoop on how you can make the most with all of these different topics. So take a look at what we've done in the past. We also have a full slate of webinars coming up. And so there's a little bit for everyone, lots of valuable information to be found there. With that being said, we're about to jump in. The agenda for today will be that I will start sharing my screen in a minute. We're going to walk through the settings, and I see a comment here saying that a lot of things seem very intuitive. I appreciate that. Many users find the platform really easy to use, but on the chance that maybe you're coming from a different platform where you're used to a different paradigm, the purpose of today is really to cover all of the bases, give you an idea of where all of the different settings live, how powerful our editor is and all the capabilities there, how you can set up your newsletter design, how you can set the sending settings so you make sure that you are sending to the right people. If you want to use Beehiiv as more of a blog, how you post things to the web. If you want to use kind of a hybrid system where you're posting blog posts and newsletters, we'll cover that as well. We're going to cover just about a little bit of everything. I'm going to move pretty quickly. And so as you go, if you have questions about specifics, Tony will be here to drop links to our documentation on our website, our support knowledge base. We have full documentation of every feature that we release. And we have other resources elsewhere, our blog at blog.beehiiv.com, product announcements at product.beehiiv.com. And then our YouTube channel is very robust with over 400 tutorials of all of our different features. The thing that some people have found is that as we've grown so quickly, there are some videos that we have not gone back and reshot yet. And for a variety of different reasons. Sometimes we're releasing new features that are going to replace it. So if we were to redo the video, we'd have to redo it again in a short time. And that's the biggest one, actually. But there's some other smaller reasons why we might do stuff. But anyway, those also have tutorials that go into the depth, go into the weeds on specific features. And so I say all that to say the expectation for today should be a very high level overview, but very in the weeds on the specifics of how to use the platform. We won't be necessarily getting into more strategic things like how to grow your following, how to select your audience. Those are all things that we cover in some of our other webinars. This is meant to be a very practical session and just give you the lay of the land, give you some orientation. I guess literally an orientation would be the best description of the session today. So that is to say, we're here to answer any questions, give you the answers that you may need, and get you started on the best foot possible. As I start sharing my screen, and I'm going to show you what the end result of what this process might look like. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and the rest of this will be very much a screen share. So if you want to get your screen pulled up and you can follow along side by side, or if you have multiple screens, you can do side by side. Usually it can be very helpful to follow along as you go. I will say, as new users, if you have not yet started the trial, if you haven't clicked the button, if you started on the launch plan, it will be valuable if you start that trial as you follow along, because all of the features that we're going to cover are not all of the features, but many of the features we're going to cover are included as part of that paid plan that you'll have 30 days of completely free access to, no credit card needed to get started there. But we like to give you a run through of everything that's possible so you make the most of that trial. That also includes some of the features that are not included on the trial, like our monetization tools. We don't include those on the trial just because we've had users who have had pretty negative experiences where they might have started testing out some monetization and then they lose that access, and then they lose access to money that's in the platform, and then we have to figure out, and it's a very manual process to get that unwound. So we decided monetization features, they stay behind the paid plan so that you don't lose access halfway through. So I'll be covering those and how those work so you can see a peek behind the curtain, what you can expect, and maybe that will influence your decision when you finish your trial. All right, so this is a test publication that I have run on and off over the last year or so called Vacation Voyeur. The positioning is that it is a newsletter focused very narrowly on the niche of ultra luxe, boutique, holiday, and vacation experiences. The idea being like, let me go and research and find literally the most expensive, opulent experiences that money can buy, and let me write about them. And hopefully that people who are either those people who are window shopping and want to see that sort of thing, or maybe people who are world travelers will follow the newsletter, and we'll get started. My niche isn't super well defined in terms of demographics, as I'll cover in a minute, because I run this just to kind of get an overview so I can share with folks. But it is relatively fun to find. It's very focused on that high-end luxury experience. And so this is our old website builder. I called it our old one. It's really the only one that's available to the public right now, but we're launching a completely rebuilt experience. So I won't go too deep into the design aspects of the website because that's going to be completely changing in a couple months' time. But when we click into any of these posts, you focus here because this is a very similar experience that won't change all that much. I'm actually going to go to a more recent one. So when we click into a post, this is basically a representation of the web part. I'll show you an example of the email within the platform within our preview tool in a few minutes. But as we go through the editor in a few minutes, I'll show you how we're going to create this. So we have our heading, our subtitle. I don't use a thumbnail in the actual post itself, but when we get to talking about thumbnails, like this is the thumbnail. These are all what we call content tags. So there are ways to organize your content and allow users to search and filter. So if I click the yacht content tag, it's going to filter to all of the content that is tagged with yachts. So going back to the post itself, we have this widget here that is basically a conditional widget that's only going to show to users on the free plan or who are not yet subscribers. If you are part of the paid subscription, this just shows the widget that lets you listen to the article itself. And then, of course, if you're a free user, it's giving you an upsell to try to upgrade. We have pictures, of course, images, columns that you can use to structure some of your data, subheaders, which help to create some visual interest and break up the content. Of course, hyperlinks, totally typical experiences when you're reading a blog or a newsletter. See what other things. I have some other kind of features down at the bottom. So content breaks, you can use this to visually break up your content. We have polls here. So at the end of all these posts, I asked, do you think this experience was worth the price tag? We have social media embeds, so you can share different posts. So in all of these posts, I share the social media post that I made for the previous week's edition. Uses the Instagram API to look native. So whether you're on the web or you're in the email, it's going to look like this very interactive experience where users can just click the button and it's going to take them right to the Instagram post itself. And that works for Blue Sky, Twitter, and some other platforms. We'll go over those. We have our internal linking feature, so you can do internal links that help with SEO and help just quality of life of being able to have users jump from article to article. We have a satisfaction survey here that helps me monitor whether my content is serving the users the way I want it to. We have our comment section, and then again, the keep reading section where we can keep users continuing along the journey. With that being said, I will get into the actual platform itself, and we will start going through the settings. So that's just an idea of what the kind of end state of what your newsletter can look like and can get to, and what we're going to be covering when we get to the editor portion. To get started, we're going to start in the settings section, get you all set up, make sure that everything is covered, all the bases are covered from scratch. If you click in the bottom left corner of your screen, you'll see the settings. We have basically two categories of settings. We have workspace settings and we have publication settings. So we're going to actually start with the higher level. If you can imagine, your workspace is on an umbrella that holds potentially multiple publications. We just use the term publications to refer to newsletters or blogs or whatever you're actually publishing. And in our world, the reason why we use publication versus newsletter or blog is because the lines are really blurred. They're really the same thing. A blog can have an email component where you're publishing but also sending a newsletter. Your newsletter, as we'll cover, should definitely have a web component to it as well. So we use the word publication to encompass both of those things. From the overview tab, you can set the name of your kind of organization. So this is typically the company name, your default address, which will go at the bottom of all of your publications, and then we'll show you this list of all of the publications that you have within your account. So this is what I mean when we say it's a umbrella. These are all various newsletter publications or blog publications that I've created and they're all listed here. I can edit them if I want. I am not the admin of this specific workspace within this view. So if I was, I'd be able to also delete the publications here, but you can click there to view them. From the team tab, you can invite new users, search, see who you've invited. These are just random people from our team that I've invited, but I can see the team members here, who the owner is. So this is my current user who's logged in, but you can see the owner is my other email here. If I want to add someone new, just enter their email, select the permission level. So either workspace or publication being more restrictive only to a specific publication. And then whether you should make them an admin, a member, or a contributor. Contributors are the most restrictive, typically can only draft and write posts, but can't actually send anything or export data. Members can export or access all of the functionality of the platform except for these admin permissions. So members can do everything except for change billing, export data, set up integrations, and manage teammates and payments. That means that they can publish posts, they can write posts, they can work with all of the different growth features that aren't included in these categories. Admins, again, will have access to everything within a specific publication or workspace, depending on the hierarchy. When it's time to upgrade your account or downgrade, if that's the case, you're going to come to this billing and plan section. This will say upgrade or change depending on which plan you're on. Once you click it, it'll pop up and let you choose the specific plan that works for your number of subscribers and the features that you'd like. If you ever need to update your billing info, you'll click right here. Pretty self-explanatory. It's just going to show you your last payment date, your next payment date. Everything's super transparent here. And if you're a little bit more development-minded, you're integrating beehiiv into a tech stack of some sort, you may want to use our API. We also integrate with tools like Make and Zapier and other no-code automation tools. This is where you'll create an API key and you'll find your publication ID, both of which are needed to access the API, but super easy to find, super easy to access right here. So moving into the actual publication or newsletter itself, we're going to set the name here, the description here. You're going to create logo here. We talked about thumbnails a few minutes ago when I was showing you the website. By default, if you don't add a thumbnail, this default thumbnail will show up. If you don't add a default, it's basically like a beehiiv shadow image that shows up. So definitely, at the very least, set a default, but we definitely recommend creating custom thumbnails for every post that you publish to the web. Publication tags help us identify and understand the content of your publication. This helps for things like our recommendations widget or recommendations tool, which we'll get into, ad provisioning, and some other discoverability things. Use at least one. The more, the better, but don't add three just to add three. The more specific and aligned with your content, the better, because that helps us basically find other ad opportunities and other publications that you can partner with more easily. Not all of our users speak English as their first language or publish in English. And so if you want to choose, you have these 6 languages to choose from. This will change the defaults of all of the automated comms and all of the buttons and the kind of any of the communications that we don't provide customization for. These have all been reviewed by native speakers and tested over 3 years. You can be confident that these are going to look good. If there is something that doesn't look quite right and you are a native speaker of one of these languages, let us know. We're always willing to change. But yeah, do that. Default time zone. Again, if you're the guest here who is in India, you can change your time zone. This is just going to default to wherever you created your account from. Yeah, other than that, UTM analytics, UTM source stuff, if you're a marketer, you'll know what this means. Otherwise, recommend keeping it default. You're good to go. As far as content access, not all users want their content to be publicly available. Maybe you're publishing on behalf of your startup, you're doing some investor comms, or you're a parent who's starting a PTA newsletter. In those cases, you might want your content to be private on the web, and if you're publishing to the web. So if you do, you just check this to private. It's going to make sure that only people who are subscribers can actually see any of the content that you're publishing. And then if you, again, want it to be so that people can apply to be able to view your content, maybe you don't know exactly who everyone is, but you want to send out a link and kind of vet people on a case-by-case basis, you can check this to ensure that you're requiring subscriber approval. So what's going to happen here is they will see a screen that says this publication is private. You have to apply to be able to view the content. They'll submit their email. Before they see any content, you'll get a notification where you'll have an opportunity to approve or deny them. Lastly, if you are on our Max plan, we do provide the ability to remove the private branding. Or to enable private branding. This is removing those powered by beehiiv links that are at the bottom of the web pages and emails. Cool. We got some activity in the chat. I know that Tony's been handling this, but documentation about permissions, minimum subscribers. Cool. So Inspire Uplift. I see a couple questions about boosts. We're going to cover boosts. Is probably why Tony hasn't responded quite yet, but we're going to cover that at the very end because we save our monetization features towards the end. And it looks like all of your questions are about boosts. So we will certainly get to that. Can you publish a post in multiple languages? So right now, if you do want to publish in multiple languages, as we get into showing how the publication and posts work, there's no way to have a post exist, like one post exist in multiple side-by-side languages. That's something that we have thought about or considered with powering using AI and basically partnering with the way that Google allows you to publish the same content multiple times in different languages. We haven't done that quite yet because typically if somebody's publishing, it's like they're publishing in a specific language, not necessarily like English and Spanish in the same publication. It's I would say a very rare use case. Maybe a handful of people over our hundreds of thousands who have signed up have requested that. So it's something we'll probably get to eventually. But as we get in, as you may know, or if you follow beehiiv, we follow our customer feedback. We build only the features that users are asking for and wanting, and that's desired. We have a very robust roadmap that we're building to. And as we get more requests for that, we'll gain more precedence and priority. So cool. Moving to the second section, this is going to influence kind of the way that your emails show up in the user's inbox. So in this case, we have your sender name. This is when they open it in Apple Mail or Gmail, what it's going to look like as a sender. When they click reply, this is the address that the email will go to. By default, it's going to be the email that you signed up with. Footer details, if you do have a address or details in the footer that you want separate from the organization umbrella, you can set those here. And then we have a couple preset emails or like automated emails that go and get sent out for particular purposes. One is a welcome email. So by default, every account gets an automated welcome email that you can turn on. If you are on one of our paid plans, you can use automations for the same purpose, but just so that everybody at the very least has a welcome email, we have this here. You can configure the welcome email by clicking this. Otherwise, I have it turned off because I run the welcome emails for this publication through automations. And of course, we'll cover that later. Another practice that we recommend is turning on a double opt-in. And so double opt-in simply means when somebody subscribes, they're going to get an email that requests an active action to confirm their subscription. So you come here, you subscribe, an email is sent to you saying, hey, it looks like you subscribed to Vacation Voyeur. Please click this button to confirm your subscription. In that case, you can view the opt-in email and modify it if you'd like. All right. So moving on to content import. If you are migrating your newsletter, I didn't see too many people respond here, but if you're from one of these 4 platforms, we have a one-click automated import that you can use. Otherwise, unfortunately, we don't support content imports otherwise, but as other platforms make their data more portable, we will add those as they come up. If you are importing subscribers, you're going to do so here. Click this to go through the flow. The instructions on screen will walk you through everything. Very self-explanatory. By default, you're going to have 10 that you can import. which if you're starting from scratch, will get you going with those like kind of initial kind of friends and family. And again, this is just an import. You can always have more than 10 people subscribe. It's just if you are adding them manually, we put these limits in place. In order to prevent spammers from being able to access the system, if you do need more than 10, like an import limit higher than 10, there's a very simple automated identity verification. This ensures that if somebody is misusing the platform, they can't come back and do it again once we boot them because the access is tied to an identity. Lastly, if you have more than 10,000 subscribers, that's going to boost your limit up to 10,000. If you have more than 10,000, you can open this request form, which is sent to a priority queue from our support team, and they will up your limit from 10,000 to whatever you may need. It's just a little bit of an additional manual verification of your information. If you ever decide that you want to take your data and go somewhere else, we are completely portable. We don't lock people in. We don't hold your data hostage. If you use our paid features, you run those entirely through your owned Stripe account, so you can take that with you wherever you want. We don't create one for you, and then if you want to leave, say, hey, we still own this. You control everything, and that goes for your subscribers as well as your content. You can export absolutely all of your data. You can delete it all, whatever you want to do with it. Your data is yours. One of the biggest things people want to do is create a custom domain or add a custom domain to their account. I've already set one up here, but the instructions are very straightforward. This is one of the areas where we've done the absolute most user experience testing and work because it's such a traditionally complicated experience and one of the ones that is most used. Once you decide on the custom domains that you want to add to your account, we walk you through the steps of setting those up, and then we actually have a tool that will automatically connect with your DNS provider and set all of like the technical things. So there's no going into your hosting provider like GoDaddy and copying over these big strings of letters and numbers that look very code adjacent and are very confusing. You literally just log in using a single sign-on. So you just verify with GoDaddy or Squarespace or whoever you're using, and then you click the sync button and we will add the records that you need. If there is any issue here, we also have our support team is very well versed in this. I think Tony might also drop the documentation here and can walk you through all of it. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, happy to take some of the questions about this here. It tends to be one of the areas that people want to deal with the most. And Inspire Uplift, as I said before, we will address those questions. We will just wait till we get towards the boost section. I'm not going to change the flow of the presentation to tackle that early. Next up, if you're a developer, you may want to post data that's happening in beehiiv to other platforms. You can do so with webhooks. API and webhooks typically work together. The API is reaching into beehiiv from an external tool, like reaching in and pulling data out. Webhooks are data that originates in beehiiv being pushed to external platforms. And an example would be if you wanted to, for example, run a sync of all of your subscribers from beehiiv to another tool, you would probably use the API to list all of your subscribers and bring them in. If you wanted to have a real-time sync between other platforms where when somebody subscribes to your beehiiv account, they get pushed in real time to this external platform, you would use for that real-time interaction. These also integrate fully with those no-code tools I mentioned, like Zapier and Make, and those tools have very straightforward directions that we've created on how to integrate them. So we make it incredibly easy for you to integrate beehiiv across your entire tech stack. Yeah, we have a bunch of different actions here. It's not just subscribers. It's if somebody subscribes, if they unsubscribe, if they upgrade a paid account, if they downgrade a paid account. And I think there's several others. Let me see if I can see them here. But yeah, I think it's 4 or 5. We're always adding a couple. So yeah, you can connect ManyChat aside through Google Tag Manager, which is you just deploy the script using the Google Tag Manager ID, and then you can insert the ManyChat script into Google Tag Manager. And then if you want to pass back the data between ManyChat and beehiiv, you can do that. Let's see. And then here, okay, cool. So these are all the different subscription types. So you can do webhooks based on when a user is created, when they're confirmed. So the two differences there would be created would just be somebody signs up. Confirmed would be if they have a double opt-in, that the user has been confirmed that they have subscribed. When their subscription is removed or deleted, if you delete users from your account, when their subscription is upgraded to a premium plan, if they downgrade from a premium plan, when you create a specific tier in your beehiiv account. So we have tiered systems of, you can create like a bronze, silver, gold tier within your paid program. When you delete a tier, this is super helpful if you're running your some sort of paid program or subscription community through beehiiv, you can integrate with other tools out there to basically say, hey, cool, in Slack or in Discord, this user has gold access, so they should have access to, or we now have a gold tier. Users can join the gold tier with whatever. Post sent, so this is when somebody sends a post, or you send a post to your users, and then when somebody responds to a survey. So lots of different ways that you can use these to trigger actions outside of beehiiv. Cool. Payment accounts, once you are using our paid features and you connect your Stripe accounts, this is where you're going to manage the details of your Stripe accounts if you need to disconnect them and reconnect them. And then we have two different ways in which you can use RSS feeds. One, every account you can turn on an RSS feed, which allows your subscribers to get the content that you're publishing in an RSS reader. We also, for our Max users, have the ability to ingest RSS feeds and automatically populate content into a post so that you can either draft your content more quickly or automate that post creation. Awesome. So that gets us through the features. I've been taking questions as they go. So if you have any more, definitely drop them in and we'll move forward. I want to cover, before we get into we'll go through the dashboard and then we'll get into the writing experience and we'll get into the publishing experience and we'll go through all the different features here. So our dashboard shows us, based on these timeframes, active subscribers, open rate, click-through rate, basic metrics here. We keep track of the different ways in which the beehiiv growth tools influence your growth. So you can see the beehiiv impact very clearly right here. If you go into your audience tab, you can see your growth of subscribers over time, where they came from. If you're being referred to by other websites or users, that will show up here. Engagement is going to show your top posts. So you can see a quick view of how your different content posts have performed. And lastly, if you're using the monetization features, again, boosts, paid subscriptions, and ads will show up here. At the very top, so we already went through settings. At the top, we have our Share and Earn tab. This is how you access our partner program. We have a very robust partner program. We'll split revenue 50-50 with any customers that you refer our way. So once you start using beehiiv, once you love it, it's an extra way to make some money. Our wallet, so when you start using some of the paid features, this is like the wallet experience where you can see kind of funds coming in and out. And then lastly, we have our help section, which is going to show you all of the different resources if you run into trouble, just a bunch of different ways in which you can find what you need in terms of resources to get started. If you want to view your website, the live version, the little globe button up here is going to take you there. And then if you want to change the personal settings on your account, you can click, we have this notifications tab. This is going to let you know about things around your account when you have ad opportunities and things like that. And then if you want to change any information about your account, you can do that here. So personal info is going to let you set your profile information. Account security is changing your password and stuff like that. Turn on and off notifications. Again, log out. And these are all pretty self-explanatory. I will say one of the things that some new users run into is if you hit this view site and you haven't yet published a post, you're going to automatically be redirected to this subscribe page. This is because, and this, let me read it first, is not going to be here. It's just because it's a really poor user experience for potential people to come to your site and then just see like the empty archive and no data. If you keep getting redirected here and you're not sure why the just plain website won't show up, it's just because you haven't published a post yet. When you publish a post, it shows up and you'll see the post in your archive and users will be able to view this page. All right. So moving into the editor, our philosophy here is to really give that blank slate that makes writing much easier. Eliminate distractions and really just put a focused experience in front of you. And you might ask, I start writing some content. This is a title, this is title, and then this is some content. You might say, okay, where is the styling? And this is, I start with this because this is one of the most important concepts of the platform. We come from a background of designers as well as creators and newsletter publishers. And so what we've done is we've really taken the concept of a design system and built it directly into beehiiv and how we do everything. One of the challenges that we all had with email platforms in the past is that most of them, you're really designing the email as you write, which then you have two different objectives that you're trying to balance. You're trying to get the content out, but then you're having to edit the spacing and the look and feel, and then maybe you edit the copy, and you might change the size of the font in one space, but then the size of the font in other sections stay the same. It's just very, very time consuming is the punchline. And so what we've done is we've basically separated the design process from the writing process in the concept of a design system. So a design system, just the idea that your design should have set rules that then dictate essentially how everything works. And just to give you a quick view here, under the newsletter builder, we have our design system. This is going to be a mock-up of the look and feel of your newsletter. And the idea is that you set this up once where you say, okay, cool. What do I want my H3s to look like? What do I want my content breaks to look like? What do I want my links to look like? Quote blocks, buttons, etc. You set all of this one time. And then when you go into you actually write your newsletter, all you have to do is put pen to paper metaphorically and write. You don't have to actually worry about any of the design and how it's going to look and feel. It's going to look consistent and it's going to look really good every single time without extra work. And it can be a little bit of a point of confusion for people who aren't used to that. As far as I know, we're the only platform that works like that. But many people say that they save hundreds and hundreds of hours over the course of a year by not having to both design and write and then design their email. So again, if I look here, this is a post that I've already written. I come into the post here, we have images, we have the content, the text and whatnot. Very simple. And then if I go back here, this is the email preview. All of this is already designed. So the H1s now have the correct font and size. My links are going to be, this is a plain post, but my links are going to look proper. My buttons are going to look proper. My polls are going to look proper. All of this looks correct. And I literally didn't have to do any extra work. I just wrote the content and it just looks great. The thing that you want to avoid doing, and this is one of the things, the challenges that some people have challenges with, is that once you have some content written, we have this toolbar where you can make things bold or italicized or underlined. These are just ways to tune for emphasis and like really add texture and personality to your content. Sometimes they come in here and say, okay, cool, I'm in this font size section or I'm in this font family section. I want everything to look like this. And so they go through their entire newsletter and they're like highlighting everything. And they go and they're like changing the font here. And then they come to us and say, hey, like the design process of this platform is like really hard to use and very confusing. And we say, okay, that's because these are not necessarily meant for designing the newsletter. It's meant for really just those one-off things where maybe you have a specific thing where maybe you want just one little specific part of your newsletter to be, there we go, to look a certain way. Maybe I want to just this once make this text extra large. I don't know why I would do that. It's a terrible design decision, but maybe I do. In this case, now in this one place, I do have that flexibility to do that. And I have it set to, I must have changed this at some point to premium subscribers. So there we go. So here you can see it's just in this one spot, it's going to make the text really big, but we'll get into the specifics there. So again, title, subtitle, author, you can add more, change more, add guest authors and whatnot. Where you set those content tags I referred to at the beginning of the conversation. This is where you add your thumbnail. And then you get into the content portion. So as we talk about writing the content itself, the central experience here that you probably have discovered is this palette widget where we have all of our different tools that you can drop in with one click. The stuff up top is pretty basic. It's just going to be very typical widgets you might expect. So you can add files, add a table of contents. If you want your content to only be read to a certain point, then users have to just subscribe below that certain point. That's what a subscriber break is. Headings are pretty self-explanatory. These are just the different headings that are going to break up the text. I talked about embeds and I showed you guys the Instagram one, but there's multiple other embeds here. And then of course we have these premium features that you'll have access to during the trial, where you can use things like our AI writer if you want to take something and make it more concise or edit it or change the language or whatnot. There's a bunch of things you can do there. We have polls, recommendations, boosts. If you do have some sort of widget that you're pulling in from a third-party tool that you need code for and you want to drop the raw code, we support custom HTML in that way. So in this case, if I was to write some valid HTML, this is the div. I say hello and then preview it. Sometimes because I'm sharing my screen, it's a little bit funky. There we go. It's going to preview what that HTML is going to resolve to. So there's that. The last thing to consider here, and this is a little bit more of an advanced thing, so I want to preface this by saying don't feel obligated to use these features quite yet. If this starts to feel overwhelming, just start first and just get publishing before you add on the more sophisticated features. But one of the things that makes the platform so powerful is not only do you have that design system that I mentioned that dictates the look and feel, but we have a lot of very powerful features where you can modify the visual settings of specific content within your newsletter. First of all, I'm going to, as an example, group this paragraph and header together using this menu. I'm going to say group to a section. So now with this concept of a section, I can actually change the visual settings of this block. I can move the block around as a whole. And so that's one thing. You can create sections that are then now blocks of content. And then you can use things like changing the background to change the background of the entire block. And maybe I want to change all of the text within this block to a certain color as well. I could do that. I could make it pink, or I could make it white. Maybe I want the background to be black and I'll make this white. One way you can start to get pretty sophisticated with how things look and feel. The other thing you can do here is with these visual settings, you can add a border. So let's say I want to make a border and let's make it pink. I don't know if you'll be able to see it there, but you can see it here. And all of this, we have tutorials if you want to go deeper into any of this. But if you see some designs that look a little bit more bespoke, you have that. Oh, you're not going to be able to see it because the background is that same pink color, but essentially you can add the background, you can add these, you can add the border. One thing that people sometimes don't catch on to is that if you click on these icons, you can actually change the border of each side. So you can have some in top and bottom. If that's what you want, you can change the style, etc. Same thing with the spacing. So maybe you want to do some custom spacing. I can change the inner spacing. If I click that button again, I can change the inner spacing of just the top and bottom. So let's say I want to add an extra for the top and bottom and an extra 20 pixels. I get really specific with how I want this to look and feel. So that is to say, in today's kind of iteration of our platform, I haven't come across a design in the last at least 12 months that we haven't been able to replicate pixel for pixel, either from other platforms or from a design, if you have a design mocked up by a designer. Between these tools, between our newsletter designer, we can really replicate anything. And you might think, okay, cool, I did all this work to create a beautiful design, but I'm going to have to do all this work each time I want to publish a newsletter. Not true. Once you have your content done and you're ready to go, there's a couple of things you can do. So one, if we hit the save button, it's going to save a template. And so this way, when you go to write a new post, there's two ways you can start writing. One is going to be from a blank draft, which is that blank slate. The other is from a template. And so once you save a template, you can start a brand new post from that starting point. And it's going to save all of those different settings. So once you have a template or an outline, you can save that and then just start from that point every time. And you start to really get very efficient with this workflow and really just focusing on the content itself. Aside from that, I mentioned our backlink tool earlier. This is how you're going to do that. So if I click into this section, I want to get to the next out of it. If I do these square brackets, it's going to open up my list of different past posts. If I click one of them, I now have this link. I can click it, I can edit it, change the text itself and whatnot, and that's going to be inserted as a link. But now I can see it in this menu over here. And as I add ingoing and outgoing links, I can view them here. So very useful for SEO and helping giving your content the best chance of ranking in Google. Similar, if you're working on a team or you bring on a writer, you bring on a designer and you want to work with them, we have very powerful collaboration tools. By highlighting anything in the editor and clicking this speech bubble, I then can tag people. I can leave comments, rewrite this, for example. And when I hit enter, this is going to show up in the comments section over here. So if Tony, for example, was in here, he could come in and ask for clarification, whatever. And when it's resolved, I can hit the check button and I can see using these filters what has been resolved, what is open. So great for collaboration. The other thing is here, you see this little icon where it says EW. This means EJ White. It's just my name. If Tony V was in here, there'd be a little icon that says TV that shows that he's in here. And just like Google Docs, you'd be able to see his cursor moving around in real time. You'd be able to see any content that he's adding. So there's no overwriting each other. There's no conflicts of merging different versions. It all happens in real time together. So the collaboration aspect here is really cool. Say, for example, you have a draft and you say, hey, editor, come in and rewrite it. And the editor comes in and really doesn't make it better and you want to revert it. You can go into this version history. You can see the different versions of this post I've gone through. You can look at any of them and then simply hit the restore button, just like in Google Docs, and it's going to restore that version. And then, yeah, I think that covers all of it. Of course, if you want to look and search, this can be useful if you need to make an update and you want to search and replace. We have this very useful search and replace functionality here as well. Lastly, if you click that kind of settings button, it's going to take you to the newsletter builder. So you can always have your settings on how you want to modify the look and feel close at hand. Before I move on to the actual sending process, I do want to call out two things. One, under the email header section at the very bottom, if you do want to have your logo at the top, you can, under this miscellaneous section, set that. It's only going to show up in the email itself. It won't show up on the web post because that would look really weird. But a lot of times folks want the logo to go at the very top. You can set that right here. If you're a developer and you have any custom CSS styles that you need implemented, you can do that here. Again, just another way that we make it so that there's pretty much no way that we can't replicate any design that you may throw at us. And then lastly, If you need to edit the footer of the email, we have obviously these visual settings, but at the very bottom, there's this custom content. And so if you click this link, it's going to take you to an experience where you can literally put whatever content you want in the footer. It's going to basically just be another version of the editor. Only thing to know here is that this is going to be at the bottom of absolutely all of your emails, even your automations and whatnot. So anything that goes in the footer, you just want to expect that users are going to see it. Any user might see it. It's not going to be targeted to a specific segment of your audience. All right. So we've gone through that. I'm going to take a look at the chat real quick and see if there are any questions. Yeah, let's see. I can always take a look and see. I can never say never, the exception. Oh, this is really cool. This is a really nice design. Yeah, sorry. I'm taking a look right now at Assad's design that right now is very image-based. I would say we can there is a lot of this that we actually can support using sections. This would be like a perfect use case of like sections along with images. And so some of these things you may need, Assad, I'm referring specifically to your newsletter. Actually, let's just share it real quick because I can cover where our limitations is, and this might be useful for some people. So this is Assad's newsletter, really nice design, very unique. What we can support actually is these, the background and like the border and stuff like that, you can definitely do based on, still highlighted. Okay. You can do using the design system. What you would do is you would actually have like this part. Let me see if I can create something you'd have this part be an image, and then this would be, you'd have a section that doesn't have a border on the top, but has this background, same color. And then you would just basically put them on top of each other. And so then at the end of the section, you would have this be an image connected to a different section. You may have to modify this a little bit because it looks like just the height cuts into that bottom line. But then again, you would have a section with this font would be set in your design settings, this background color and border would be set at the section level. And then, yeah, you'd have this image. This might be a little bit tougher because this looks like you'd have to have a section. But yeah, these dots right here, this would be a little bit tough. This would be because I'm thinking through, you'd have to have a section, you'd have to have columns within a section. Yeah, this part would be a little bit challenging. Because we can definitely obviously do the section with the border. A lot of times when people have stuff like this where it's just like a header that's maybe a little bit more complicated, they'll use just, if it's like the same content with every send, they'll just make this into an image and use the header as just the image. That's what, if anybody sees Tyler Dank, our CEO, his newsletter, like his section titles are the same. And he'll just use images there with the dynamic text beneath with a format. The thing you could do here is if you had the HTML, you can also always just drop this part in as HTML and using the HTML snippet that I just mentioned within a section and be able to achieve that. This would be something that you'd probably want to reach out to our support team with, and our solutions team is really good at this. Again, you could definitely do this part as well using images with sections, a little bit more of an advanced use case, but we could definitely do this. I'm like, as I think through it, I think this would be the only one is if you had we just need to create some HTML around this, and then you'd be able to do this within code to make it a little bit more lightweight. But yeah, the thing is, it's like with the more complicated a design gets, especially with some of these additional elements, the more just any platform is going to need to be a little bit more, you're going to have to be a little bit more sophisticated to get it to work. But yeah, I actually don't see why this would not work. So happy to work with you specifically. I always like a challenge. Back in the day, early in my journey here, I was what am I doing here? Where's my other screen? So it's down below last time. Being here from day one, it was my job very often to basically be that support person who would jump in with clients and make it work. But yeah, so again, like I said, my email is ej@beehiiv.com. I love the challenge. And when we say there might be some limitations, for us, that becomes a goal. Because our goal is to have you be able to create with absolutely no limitation. When we see things where it's, okay, that's interesting, our response is to not say, hey, go change your design. Our response is, hey, how can our platform be flexible enough to support that design? And if it's not, then that's something that we want to take to heart. And we want it to be, we never want like the design, we never want to limit our creators from a design perspective, because of course that's what makes your content special. Definitely reach out. I'm sure we can make it work. I'm very confident that we could come up with a solution there. Moving from there, really appreciate that real-time example. And I hope most folks don't mind that we took that little kind of detour. But it's a perfect example of how you can basically layer on these different things to make some really cool stuff happen in beehiiv. Once we have your post written, we're going to hit this next button, which is going to start off the flow where we're going to modify the settings to get ready to send. In this case, audience, you can set who you want to send it to. If you want to send it to everybody via only email, you would select all of these for email. So this is going to send to all of your paid subscribers and all of your free subscribers, and specifically all of the specific tiers. I have a premium tier. In this case, it would not send to any web subscribers. If it was a paid post and I wanted to only go to paid users on web or email, I would just select both of these, and it would basically be published to those premium subscribers via email. And then on the web, it would be locked, and the users would have to log in, and they would only be able to see it if they were premium subscribers. Beyond that, we have these tools to include and exclude segments. So I've made this segment, which is just a sub part of my list of all of the users who I got through Instagram ads. If I only wanted to send a post to them, maybe I wanted to do a survey of, hey, what do you like most about my newsletter? I could include only this segment, and maybe I wouldn't post that to the web. So in this case, it's going to go to these 167 subscribers. It's only going to be delivered to 163 because it looks like 4 of them probably. Alternately, if I'm running this more like a blog, I'd probably select both of these, one or both. So it's going to web users, but if it's a blog post, I might not want it to go to email at all. In this case, it's when I get rid of that included segment, it's going to go to only web. Even though it says 298 subscribers here, when you post to the web, it's going to go to anybody can view it unless you have that private publication. If you uncheck free subscribers, then anybody will be able to see it in the archive, but only your paid users will be able to actually access it. Sometimes users get tripped up a little bit here, which is why I'm going into a little bit of detail. But if you have any questions, please raise them. We're happy to answer them. So just so we see all of the settings, I'm going to come back and I'm going to add in the email audience. And on the next tab, we're going to go to the email specific settings. Here, we'll add our subject line. You can turn on A/B testing so you can test multiple subject lines. We have statistically validated tests that we run. So in this case, when you hit send, it's going to go to 10% of your list, in this case, 30 subscribers. And after 60 minutes, our system will evaluate which subject line performed better, and we'll send the winning subject line to the rest of the list, which is the other 90%. Thing to keep in mind here is if you do send at a particular time, say you send at 7 a.m. every day, if you send at 7 a.m. but you have this A/B test set for 60 minutes, your main list will not get it until 8 a.m. If you still want that 7 a.m. delivery, you'd probably want to send to the test. You'd start the test at 6 a.m. and then run it from there. Preview text is just the text that goes underneath the subject line in the inbox. You can change that there. These settings here, header buttons, are going to be dictated or going to dictate what shows up. So by default, I have them off. I got to change this to not be of me. In this case, as we saw before, maybe I had the socials turned on. So if I turn on these, because I was looking at the web version, that's why. Okay, so web version socials are always there. But if I let's go back to the preview. I look at email. Again, there's no social share buttons and there's no comment icons. So if I go in here and I toggle these and come back to that email preview, you can now see I have these social share icons, both on web and email, social share and comment. Next, moving to the web settings, this is where you can set your URL. If you didn't set a thumbnail, you get another chance to set it here. We have a couple different ways that you can do email capture that you can either set at the publication level or you can choose to set it on a post by post level. Gating means that users have to subscribe to be able to read your content. Pop-up is just going to show them a pop-up when they get halfway down the page, or you can choose none. If you are on our premium or max plan, you can also have the option by checking this button to turn your post into a audio post powered by, it's going to be basically a voice reading your newsletter powered by 11 Labs. And you can do that. You can use my voice. You can actually use our CEO's voice. I believe Tyler might be here somewhere. Maybe not. Maybe it is only my voice here. But you can also don't do that one. Use one of the other voices here because they're much better than mine. SEO settings, if you are more of a technical SEO type person, you want to get your newsletter seen by Google and the search engines, you can modify those settings here. We have the best technical SEO out of the box among any of the web platforms, including WordPress, Webflow, Substack, all of them. We blow them out of the water. If you want to change your details around what's going to show up when users share your post on socials, you can do so here. Once you set all those web and email settings, you're going to move to the review portion. This is where you're going to get that final chance to check on your settings before you hit send. We recommend in this drop down next to preview, you can share this draft link with anyone. This is going to give people an opportunity to see what the web post looks like without going live. If you also want to send an email version of the newsletter to somebody to proof, or to yourself to proof, you can do so here. By default, none of the placeholders are going to be filled with any real data. So things like the referral program widget is just going to have a placeholder. It's not going to actually work. If you actually wanted to test how it's going to appear to a specific user, you could choose to simulate a subscriber, and that will show up here. And then you would send this test email and it's going to go to them and you can review it. Once you're ready to go, you can hit schedule. This is going to take you to the screen where you can either schedule for a later time or publish now. If I hit publish now, we're going to publish now. If I can schedule later, you can click on this calendar to set a time and date in the future. And that gets us through to your first send. So far, we've covered setting up your settings, drafting your first post, setting up the design settings for that newsletter, and getting through to your first post. So for the last 25 minutes or so, I am going to cover some of our additional features here in this left menu. So moving down from the top, actually got to go back. I don't want to hit the post again. And if you have any questions, please drop them. I can take it to answer those, but appreciate your sticking with us. This is the fun part. So under the audience tab, we have these different settings. If I click on the subscribers button, it's going to take me to my subscribers list. And so right now I'm just filtering by mine. You can filter using these settings or by entering a partial of a user's email address. By default, we show the status, any tags that they may be tagged with, the subscription tier they're part of, so either free or premium or whatever tier you have in your paid program, the date they subscribed upon, and how they came into your system. In this case, they came in through my beehiiv website, and the source and medium were direct none. This is a marketing term, but it's just going to be able to show where your growth is coming from. And of course, their email. Active just means subscribed. Inactive means unsubscribed. Pending means that they either haven't answered the double opt-in yet, or you have to approve them. If I click into this subscriber, I'm going to see a bunch of data about them. I'm going to see, as soon as this loads, all of the sending history of every interaction they've had with my posts and emails, their personal information that I've either collected through custom fields or not. This always takes a little long because my bandwidth with streaming the video, but here we go. So I can see how many emails I've delivered to them, the metrics. These are all of the post details. This should load a little bit more quickly, but usually this is pretty snappy when you do it locally. It's just that I'm streaming multiple video streams over Wi-Fi in pretty high definition. Anyway, when this does load, we'll see that history of all the posts that have been sent, in this case to myself. And then in the left menu, we have a bunch of data about the users themselves. Come on now. Oh no. Sorry about this. This can be a little bit shaky. Again, the app itself is very quick. I'm just streaming a ton of data right now. Cool. There we go. So you can see the activity feed when this finishes loading, quick links, the premium tier and what they paid, when they subscribed, any custom fields. So I collect things like their dream destination, gender, first name in my subscribe survey. So that's stored here. Their history of any automations they've been through, any tags that I tag them with. And then of course when this loads, but skip this. One thing I want to tag here, we have this thing called verified clicks. So we're actually the only platform I know of that tracks clicks on a verified basis. And this is why, the reason why is because we're running an ad network alongside this platform. And so what we've built is very sophisticated technology that actually is able to know whether a click was made by a real person or by somebody's like email inbox spam filters. So it's very common for spam filters when an email is received for the spam filter to click every link in the email just to make sure that the destination isn't something sketchy. Pretty much every platform does this. The problem is that many platforms will count those clicks as clicks in the reporting. And most platforms, it doesn't really matter because you're sending out a promotional email or you're sending out something where there's not money necessarily on the line. And it's just like one of those metrics that exists. And it doesn't have to be super, super tight. For us running this ad network, it's really important that when our advertisers are paying for a click, that click is being taken by a real person. And what we use in terms of our click numbers are clicks that are verified to be real people. And so if you do start sending with us, if you're coming from another platform, there may be a little bit of a difference in the numbers that we track. Ours are going to be far more accurate and both are verified. I think we're in the process of getting that process audited by a third party. And when you actually look at the traffic that you'll see on your website, those align pretty much one-to-one compared to a classic system where you're tracking all of those clicks. It's very common to see like email got 100 clicks, but you only tracked and saw 60 of them hit the website. And that's because many of them were bots. But I've seen some people talking online on our subreddit about a little bit of confusion there. So I wanted to clarify that. If we go to the previous screen we were just on and we go back to our tags and content tags, so custom fields, are going to be data that you can collect about a specific user, first name, last name, in this case, where they want to travel to, phone number, gender, etc. Tags are going to be very similar, but they're going to be more about a population of people or shared characteristics rather than specific data. You might use tags and content tags very similarly, but I guess typically if you need tags versus content custom fields, you'll know why. But if you wanted to, for example, in an e-com context, if you were like sending a newsletter and you wanted to like tag everybody who has bought a product, you might be like purchasers could be a tag that a bunch of people share, but like something like first name, a bunch of people don't share the same first name. So you obviously would make that a custom field. If you, again, this is a little bit more sophisticated. I usually don't go into the details here, but if you're sending something like a daily newsletter and you want to give your users preferences to scale back to like only receiving once weekly, or you have any other preferences that you're trying to set, Preferences Center can handle that for you. And from there, we'll go to the next one, which is segments. By default, we have like our architecture is centered around the idea of a central list, just one list per newsletter, but segments help you divide your list and create those sub-segments that you may want to track for analytics purposes, or because you want to send specific emails to specific populations of users. In this case, I created these segments around my paid subscribers, and I'm doing that using the criteria of UTM medium and UTM source equals CPC and Instagram. And that's going to basically be the criteria for this segment. We have pretty much any characteristic that we're collecting or any way they can interact with your newsletter can be used to create a segment. And so I'm not going to go into all the details because there's literally like infinite combinations. I think Tony will drop the documentation and maybe a video to our segmentations tutorial, but pretty much if you have any desire to segment your list in any way, you can do that with segmentation. As I said before, automations is an easy way, is like I'd say the more powerful way to create like a welcome series, but beyond a welcome series, you can really make any kind of custom journey with automations, whether it's a post-purchase flow. If you did want to have some sort of like digital product that you're selling through beehiiv, you can do some sort of, obviously a welcome series after someone upgrades. We have an incredible number of triggers that you can use, whether it's upgrade, downgrade, subscribe, unsubscribe. But you can even incorporate beehiiv with your entire tech stack using our API to automations feature. So if I go into here, this is a welcome series. You can see here the trigger is when somebody signs up, it's going to kick off this automation. We're going to send them this email, and then we're going to wait 3 days, and then we're going to send them another email, and then we're going to have some sort of time delay, and then we're going to split that group based on some sort of action that they've taken, or maybe an action they haven't taken, and then we can continue that journey here. But the kind of world of possibilities is quite infinite. Within each of these steps, if you want to, you can filter based on any of the criteria that we include in our segmentation. So you can filter, you can split on pretty much any data possible. Again, this is very similar to when we talk about being able to replicate any kind of interaction. If there's any type of automation that you're running on an existing platform, we can pretty much replicate anything. And if we can't, we definitely want to hear from you because we will build whatever we're missing. But this is something that's really become more powerful in the past, I'd say about a year or so. I think a year ago, automations was candidly a little bit one of our weak spots, and now it's certainly become one of our stronger points. And we can really stand toe to toe with pretty much any platform. Going back to the main section, under our polls, we mentioned polls earlier. I have the satisfaction poll that I include in every email. So we create the poll with the answers, and then with that widget palette, we drop the poll into every message, and then I can see the responses that people have used. This is a sleeper feature. It's one of my favorites. If I click the share results button, and then, for example, I were to jump over to X and then just paste it, it's going to give me this great like Wordle style share. So with that said, there's like a bunch of different ways you can use polls. One is for creating unique social content. You can collect feedback. Obviously, if I know that I get generally positive feedback and I get a bunch of negative feedback on a certain post, I'm going to know that I did something different that I'm going to want to investigate and can improve my process there. A lot of times, if people want to know, hey, what type of content do you want to read about? They might have a poll that gives you answers. So it helps you refine your content. All of these things drive signals in the inbox that help give you better deliverability, because when users click on your emails, it shows the email clients that you're trustworthy and that users want to engage. It also makes users feel engaged because they're actually part of the story and part of the journey. I'd say pretty much any newsletter that's being sent, if you're not using polls in some way, it's a missed opportunity. There's really a huge amount of ways in which they can be used, and there's really no downside. Surveys, I'll show you in a few minutes my subscribe flow where I collect user data on subscription, but essentially it's our version of like forms. So you build, within the form builder, give this a second to load. We have a very similar experience as visually, it's very similar to the automations experience where you basically just add a new step to the form, and then you can say, okay, here's the question title, like the text, and then we're going to have a bunch of different types of answers. It can be drop down, can be multiple choice, can be short answer, can be long answer. And then you select which custom field that should be saved to. There we go. Cool. So in this case, first name, what is your first name? The custom field I've selected that I want it saved to is first name. And then this is what it's going to look like on the form. I can choose whether it's required or not. And then from there, this one specifically is only 3 steps, makes it nice and quick. This way I can collect data about users. And this is how that data that I showed you on the subscriber level gets collected. Cool. Next, referral program. One of our most famous features allows you to set up a high performance referral program very quickly and easily. You simply come in, type in the reward name, whatever you want it to be. It can be a digital product, can be a physical product. You add all of the information here and then select the number of subscribers users need to hit in order to earn that reward. And then once you add it, users are automatically shown the next reward in the hierarchy. And so in this case, I have one for 1, 3, 10, and 20. So users will automatically be given a message when I add the referral widget to say, hey, you have 0 referrals. You are 1 away from earning 1 year vacation voyeur for free. You have 1 referral. You are 2 away from earning a sticker and so forth. We have the breakdown in performance. We have a great leaderboard as well as the impact of that performance on your newsletter. Super powerful way to grow once you hit that critical mass and you're scaling. It can be a great way to just add free growth. And speaking of free growth, recommendations, again, another popular feature for organic cross collaboration. In this case, you basically can look through our gallery of different publications. You can choose whichever ones that you want to recommend. I've chosen these. We show you how many subscribers you've recommended to those users. And of course, we also show if whoever's recommending you, how many they've recommended to you. Like I said, the operative word here is organic. We have a sponsored kind of corollary to this feature, and that's what Boosts is. And we'll get into that in a minute. But this is going to be like basically, I got a buddy, I have somebody that I'm collaborating with. I've made a deal with them where I want to share. We can you don't have to cross promote. You don't have to, but just a way to add value to your users. When they subscribe, they're going to see that you're recommending this subscription, and gives you a little bit of authority, and it can be really helpful. And I'll show you what this all looks like in a minute with the setup of the live site. If you do want to work with a user who's not on beehiiv, Magic Links is a great way to create a link that works across 15 different platforms. Users can, when it gets sent to them by email, just click the link and it automatically subscribes them. No additional data entry needed. So it can be super, super powerful there. So say you have somebody on Aweber who you want to partner with, all they have to do is insert your link in that subscriber. When they click it, it's going to say, hey, thanks so much for subscribing to your newsletter, and so forth. So mentioned Boost a second ago. Before I get into specific monetization features, I do want to cover these analytics features. I'm going to cover the subscribe flow to show you what a subscriber can look like with recommendations, boosts, paid subscription, and kind of the whole 9 yards, the subscriber survey and so forth. And then we'll get into question and answer. So under the Analyze tab, we have our subscribers report. This is going to show you your performance at a very granular level. This is on our paid plan because it is a very powerful BI tool. So we go just last 30 months, it's going to show me the breakdown of active, inactive, or pending. So subscribed, unsubscribed, or pending, where those users came from, the histogram of where users have subscribed from over time, and the performance of those subscribers. Sorry, before I move to the next one, we also have these tabs where you can drill down and to look at different things. These are the types of views that traditional newsletter platforms, 1, don't have. We by far have the most robust and in-depth analytics, but 2, when Tyler, our CEO, was working at Morning Brew, these are the types of views and the type of data architecture that they spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to build pipelines around that we build into every platform here. Our whole thesis as a company is, if you were this massive newsletter publisher, you might be building all of these different features and tools internally with your own team. We basically, as newsletter operators, were like, what if we just took those different features and pipelines and tools and all these different things that you might spend millions of dollars on. And what if we just built them into a platform so that anyone can access that? Anyone could start the next morning brew with a very small, if any, investment. And that's what we've built. And that's why we are such a kind of fast growing, vibrant company. But maybe you should start with that in the future. Anyway, you can see your performance by all of your different sources. And then we have a couple cohort analysis tabs. I'm not going to show you because they're not very impressive because I haven't been publishing lately. But the deeper you want to get, we literally have all of the data you could use. Post report shows you your performance of your individual posts. So it's the last 30 months. It's going to show you delivery rates, open rates, going to break down the different clicks and URLs and how your performance is working in terms of site visits, email deliveries, and so forth. And then lastly, if you're working with advertisers, this clicks report can be really helpful. We strip out all of the UTM parameters and anything that might, create a unique URL and basically show you the top URLs that people are clicking. And so in this case, the top URL that people click is my upgrade page, but this can be used for reporting to advertisers. So before I go into those last monetization features, I'm going to jump to the Vacation Voyeur website. I'm going to enter my email address and then we're going to hit submit. So upon submission, if I was a net new subscriber, somebody who was a stranger, I'm going to get this modal. So this is going to show my organic rep down here because there's no sponsored badge. And then it's going to show my sponsored recommendations or my boosts up top here. If I was a net new subscriber and I checked, these sponsors have said that they're willing to pay me $1 per subscriber that I send their way. And so that's a way for me to monetize very easily. So in this case, if they were both paying $1 and I became a active, engaged follower of their newsletter, I would get paid as the publisher $2 for referring a user. These organic ones would just be free, and that's altruistic. I can select all, I can select none. By default, they're opted out. This leads to better engagement and better quality. That's one of kind of the key differentiators. A lot of our competitors will automatically check them all, which then leads to users reporting spam, unsubscribing, and basically it might add a little bit of free growth and faster growth, but it's very low quality growth that usually comes back to bite people. So I'm going to not subscribe because I've already subscribed to most of these. I'm going to say maybe later. The next step in that subscribe flow is going to take me to the welcome survey where I'm going to enter the name. I'm going to enter my gender for advertising purposes. I ask this, and then dream vacation, let's say Maldives. After the survey, so now that's going to be saved as custom fields on my profile. I can use those custom fields in my newsletter. From there, it's going to now offer me the opportunity to upgrade to the premium version of the newsletter. It can save 20% by doing the yearly or just do a month to month for $2. In this case, I'm going to say no thanks. And the final step is I've turned this on to show the other newsletters that I operate so I can cross-pollinate my other publications. So I run another test publication I've set up here as like a fashion one, but I'm going to say no thanks. Of course, if a user wants to subscribe to your other ones, it's a little bit of free growth that way. After that, I could redirect them to any page I want. In this case, I just redirect them back to the home page. And so you can see how each of those experiences work. So now you've seen how boosts work on the consumer side. As a publisher, if I want to monetize my newsletter with boosts, I would go to monetize and boost. And from here, I can actually go into this area to explore the different offers that exist. I can sort, I can filter. We actually, I believe, are just launching some brand new experiences. Tony, did that product update go out already or is that going out next week? The new boost features. Yeah, it went out already. So we just made a bunch of updates to how this works in terms of like how you can sort and filter. There's a ton of stuff. Maybe Tony can drop them. I'm actually one of those areas where I've been busy on a bunch of different things. I don't know the specifics, line items of all the different things we've worked on, but never been a more powerful time to join the Boost network. In this case, you would essentially find an offer that would align with your newsletter. In this case, let's go sort by, let's do the filters. Let's do category is travel. So I'm a travel newsletter. So that's going to show me only opportunities, like only travel newsletters. And let's see if there's other ones. So primary language is English. I want to promote that. Publication size. This is going to be the publications that are paying me. I want it to be, let's do maybe medium, large, and very large. Posted within the last 10 days. So I want them to be active senders. Eligible countries. I mostly focus my advertising in the US. Let's do United States. There we go. And then that's good. So I've added a bunch of filters here. And so now I have a good short list of these different people who are willing to pay me for my referrals. In this case, let's sort by highest web payout. So this is going to be the highest per subscriber payout. And so I can apply, for example, to this newsletter here. I could say, I think my newsletter would be a good fit because I'm a fast growing newsletter in the travel space. I have a really solid open rate. I think my subscribers would really like the content that you have. The more relevant and personalized you can make this application, the more likely it is that the person will accept it. Of course, with this, you are entering into a partnership with them informally, where you are sending them subscribers and they're paying you. And so there's a lot of trust that needs to be built in terms of that you are a quality person. You're not going to send them spam traffic, and that they actually want to be associated. Basically, have your pitch ready, understand why you want them to, don't just have a copy and paste thing, but understand why you want to specifically boost a publication. And you can put in that application. Once you're approved, every subscriber that you sign up will be shown that offer, and you'll start getting paid. As far as the ad network goes, when you sign up, you'll start to receive ad offers like this one. When an ad opportunity is available, you can click and view the details. It'll show you the estimated payout, the CPC that you could make, as well as different creative options based on your tastes, on what you want and how you want them to appear in your newsletter. You can decline, you can select the dates when you want to run. I think this one's only actually eligible for one more day. But yeah, once you review and accept it, it'll show up within your newsletter editor. There's a spot where you can drop literally an ad widget where it's just going to pull in the opportunities that you have and will place them automatically. So it couldn't be easier to actually deploy them, and you determine where they go. So if you think it's going to perform better if you place it higher in the newsletter, you can put it at the top. If you think that people should read more and then people will get to the middle, you can put it wherever you want to fit your brand. Lastly, we've talked a lot about paid subscriptions. If you run any kind of paid community, you can set that up through our paid subscription features here. We have a lot of documentation on that. This is one of our oldest features. So check out the documentation in our knowledge base if you want to learn more. This competes with tools like Patreon or Memberful. If you're on Substack or considering Substack, we take a 0% fee, which is different than any of those other platforms. You can make way more with us compared to some of these other companies. And we actually have some more flexibility in terms of the schemes that you can run in terms of pay as you go, or not pay as you go, but like donations or one-time payments or different tiers and whatnot. We have a lot of different options. Yeah, and I'm moving through things quickly because we're coming right up on time. I think Tony's dropped some questions in the studio chat for me that I'm going to go over. Before I answer those questions, I want to say thank you so much for joining, and thank you for Tony for being the MC here today. If this was helpful, one of the things I will say is I always like to plug our community at the end of all of these events. So we have a community that's run through our Slack account that is accessible only to paying beehiiv members. It's 3,500 active publishers. When your subscription lapses, you get automatically removed. So these are people who are actively publishing, actively sending. It's one of the most vibrant, useful communities anywhere in the web for newsletter publishers. So if you're serious about building your newsletter, and maybe you were on the fence, keep that in mind when your trial comes to an end. It's a really valuable place. There's a little bit more than a dozen channels. There's things for growth, monetization, design, feedback, deliverability, all of these things. If you're looking to become a serious publisher, it's the place to be. So yeah, all it takes is it's not an upsell, it's not an add-on. It's just when you upgrade, we send you an email with a link to that community. And with that said, I'm going to answer some of these questions. First one, hi beehiiv team. I'm excited to start my email newsletter in beehiiv, but I have a concern. I don't want to use Google Workspace due to its setup complexity, poor support, and my goal of diversifying business platforms. Does beehiiv allow the use of third-party email services like Zoho, Fastmail, and et cetera? Yeah, we are completely agnostic on what platform you use. Yeah, none of those email platforms have anything to do with, none of those business like email owner platforms have anything to do with anything that we do. So yeah, you can use any of the ones that you absolutely are not tied to use Google Workspace in any way. You could use your Gmail. You can sign up with your Gmail account. You can sign up with any email account. We don't run an inbox. There's no inbox that is within beehiiv. There's no way for somebody to email you and your email inbox show up within the platform. We are literally just sending, and then whatever your reply to email that you set in your settings is where you're going to receive the emails. We're completely agnostic in terms of who you're using. Is there a way to get around Stripe limitations in India? Are there payment alternatives you support? So unfortunately not. There is a workaround in that if you set up through something like Stripe Atlas, you can set up a US business entity. And with that, you can certainly set up a Stripe account. And so a lot of people in countries that aren't served by Stripe do that. Unfortunately, we have no payment alternatives at this point, and we don't have any plans to add them. Stripe is by far the best platform and tool in the market from a developer and power standpoint. PayPal is a nightmare. All of these other platforms, there's no one that even comes close to Stripe in terms of the bang for the buck that we get as developers, and our entire platform is built around the Stripe. At some point in the future, maybe a couple years down the road, we will probably rebuild the platform so that it's a little bit less dependent on Stripe, but that is not on the roadmap for now. So if you are someplace where you don't have Stripe access, definitely recommend using something like Stripe Atlas, making that modest investment to create a business entity and signing up through that. When we're writing an article and add a code block, does a code block get unique DOM ID? A good technical question. You can add that ID to the code itself. I don't think it does implicitly, but if you create a div, you could create a div with an ID, and then you could access it that way through the CSS. If that's the question, I don't know if that's the follow-up to that question. So those are the 3 that I have in the chat. Let me check the main chat. We're in the good spot there. Cool. In that case, we are right at time. We're probably a minute over if I had to guess based on my little timer down here. But thank you so much for your time. I know we went over a lot in a relatively short amount of time, although it probably feels like a while. We like to cover everything, just what we're capable of. If there's one thing you took away, it's that start simple, start from the perspective of whatever just feels approachable. The important part, the foundational part, is that yes, of course. Tony, can you drop my socials there while I'm talking? But what I would say is that what we see with a lot of beginners is that you maybe have an idea of what you want to create, and then you basically create the first version, and then it's a kind of immediately growth mode. And what we recommend very strongly is that building a newsletter, starting any kind of content-based business or content-based endeavor is not terribly different than starting a startup, where once you might have an idea, and once you put it out into the market, it's now you're in a mode of collecting feedback and refining that idea. And so we cover this in all of our other web a little bit more in depth. But like when you're first starting out, the only job that you have or the only objective is to find that what we call content market fit. Could be considered product market fit if you read books about startups and whatnot. But essentially, you want to find that combination of your content that resonates really deeply with the audience that you're reaching. And so your entire job when you're first starting out is to basically test and collect feedback on how you can get that matching to happen. Refining your content, finding your niche, niching down, and then figuring out where the users or the audience that is going to value that content spend their time online. You will know that you've hit that, you've found that fit when people start sharing your content without you having to really ask them. You'll just start to see some organic growth happening, and you're not going to be begging your coworkers and your family to subscribe to your newsletter. People who are strangers who discover your content through, if you're posting on X or you're posting on LinkedIn or you're posting on Instagram or Twitter, TikTok, whatever, will start subscribing and will start sharing it. And that's really when you've resonated. And that's when it's time to start thinking about more of the growth topics. In the short term, your job, refine your content offering, collect feedback from those early users, and really understand who you want your target audience to be. If you want more details on that, all of our kind of growth related webinars will go much more in depth to that. But once you have that content market fit, then it gets really exciting. Then you can layer on the different features and benefits. And that's really when the growth features start to really compound and have a much bigger effect. For the 16 of you who stayed for that extra diatribe, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate the time for anybody who came to here to listen to us. And if you're listening to this in the future, I appreciate you personally. I'm available on socials at EJ_beehiiv on X. I think I'm Edward White on LinkedIn. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Tony. So I think that might show up when in the recording. I'm just saying it out loud for the future people in the recording. But yeah, Edward White on LinkedIn. I won't accept you if you follow me on Instagram. I'm private, and I really only accept people I know IRL and on Instagram, but and I don't use TikToks. Those are the places to find me. Email is ej@beehiiv.com if you have any questions. Always happy to connect with people and answer questions. You're what make this worthwhile. You're the reason why I've been up here talking at my computer screen for almost an hour and 40 minutes and loving it. So really appreciate your attention and can't wait to see what you build. We're overjoyed to be supporting you. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Have a safe weekend and get in touch. Talk soon.